Hello and good evening, everyone, and welcome to The
The
Truth
truth
Behind
behind
the
the
Truth.
truth.
Another beautiful Tuesday and Saturday night coming at you.
Yes.
Coming at you, coming at you, coming at you. I'm sure everyone has had a tremendous day today, and what's our title tonight? Navigating
Social boundaries.
social boundaries. Yes, we all are navigating social boundaries each and every day of our lives, but it's going to be our topic area of topics that we've got several things we want to throw at you tonight. So get yourself comfortable, get a glass of wine, a cup of tea, which one you want to pour. All right. Yeah, sit down with us. Want to remind you a couple quick things to support. Make sure you are liking and sharing us on all of our social media platforms. We are attempting to do a massive social media blitz. Okay, so you're going to be seeing us quite often. The show may be in repeat 2-3 times out of the week because I've learned something about that. Our fellow compadres, The View, they coming on 18 times a day. They got behind the table. They're on weekends now. So it's something to actually being more visible for your audience. And so we have a way of being more visible for you. We want you guys to just to take advantage. But the main thing that helps us out is you like and share and contribute.
Yeah, that's
like,
free.
share, and contribute.
That's free.
That part.
That's free. Nobody pays for that, so do what you can.
Right. That part. Okay.
And we're not locking any doors too. So
Okay.
we're not locking or shutting doors. Let's get that correct.
Right.
He said shutting doors,
Right.
not locking doors. But still, though, that's all for free. Nobody has to put up $20 or $100 if you sit up here. So
well, they can.
put up at least as much as you can.
All right, we ain't knocking the spending because we need the spending because we want to keep this thing spinning. All right, so contribute. Hey, share, like. If you need it as a tax write-off for the thousands you'll start giving, okay, hey, we can work that out too for you. We'll send you an email say you that you contributed to this show. All right, so hey, no limits. Oh, there's a limit. Okay, what is the one you don't like? You want the money that folds and the one that don't jingle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you need to use a credit card, we can let you know how to use a credit card. All right.
Just tap the computer.
Yeah,
that man said tap the plate. You tap the computer.
Tap the computer. It's gonna go right in the account. Okay.
We're
gonna make
that. We're gonna get off of Marvin Sapp.
Okay.
We're gonna get off of him because let me tell you something. We discussed this not too long ago about culture because the topic is of social boundary, navigating social boundaries, right?
Yes.
And in any religion there's a cultural social situation that happens, where there are traditions that goes on in whatever religion or church platform that you follow, and I'd say the situation with Marvin Sapp is nothing new underneath the sun for those who been to church,
right.
But for those outside and those of a situation of social boundary,
yes.
The fact that shutting doors or what they claim was locking doors was a social boundary.
Right.
So that kind of people took offense to that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, social boundary.
Yes.
But that was a great example, especially when you think about social media. People who, and there are people who tend to, they don't like not the traditions, but it's just the fact that if you ever been in a situation like that, that is, what they would call a worship situation with money, with the tithings and all that stuff. And some people, like I say, they took offense to it because, why would you shut the doors? Well, and for Marvin Sapp's excuse, it was a protection, but as well as a necessary way of making sure that everything that they were doing in that moment was a formal spiritual decency. Okay. Yes. But I have seen people say this in the presence of worship that when it comes down to tithing, close the doors because this is a situation where we're gonna
lock you in.
That
okay.
And
so I need to play. Let me play Sonny Halston for the show.
Okay.
All right, this is a legal note.
Go ahead.
According to Mario Vinsat, this was over a year ago at another church. It wasn't at his parish.
Yeah.
This was for a international gathering. It was being streamed around pretty much the world, international. And he was helping to provide funds for that event. The reason he told them to close the doors was because people were gathering, and during the time of tithing, offerings, and spiritual moments, ushers are supposed to be still. And that's what he was telling them, to be still, close the door so they can stop walking in and out and traveling. And that was the reason that he said, close the door. He said, I didn't say lock the doors. I said, close the doors. Close the doors. And he said, and I kept saying it, and it may have been a little forceful, but he apologized. He just wanted them to stop the traffic in and out.
And it happened in Baltimore too, just an FYI.
Yes.
So it didn't happen where he's actually located.
No, not at his parish.
Not at his parish. Yes. But it was a more. He's Kojic, right? Kojic convention, more like a Kojic type of situation. But still, though, a lot of people who are not used to that type of scenario of that
church practice, right?
They don't understand the situation, and people did take offense because that is of the norm. I've seen people do that. Right, I don't want to put nobody else's church on the platform.
You know, I'm about to. So I'm just letting y'all get it all.
I went to a church one time where they told you to hold up the money, hold up.
I'm about to go there.
And some of us went to the restroom because we didn't have no money. I put my hands up like I got to go to the restroom.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
And go to the ATM if you don't have it. I heard that too. I heard that too.
I know.
Go to the ATM. We got. If you got a check, we got something at the front. Go ahead.
No. I want to cut you off. You know, it got to the point, y'all, that they started putting ATMs in the lobby of the church.
Yeah, there's no excuse.
They started putting ATMs in the lobby of the church. Okay.
No excuse.
You know, I was, I'm going to say raised, brought up, went through all of these type of environments of what we have been, in my opinion, you know, you can write me if you don't like what I'm saying, bamboozling these levels of thinking. Okay. Because, you know, what I think that would have been behooved the church environment if they were been honest about the practice of the money.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, at the end of the day, because it turns into a level of propaganda because of all of these fake promises that you lay over by getting in people's pocketbooks. Okay. Because you promising people the stuff that you can't even back up. Okay. And for the most part of that, I truly believe that God didn't tell you to say all that, those type of things. It was just you pulling on the sympathy of people because you needed to raise some money, where it is, whether to go pay for your Lexus or your Benz or your home. Okay. Whatever it was. All right. It would be far better. Okay, if you would have just, hey, look, the bill is due on the Lexus. I need y'all to help me. I'm the pastor of this church, okay, and I'm up here every Sunday, all right, and I need some clothes. Baby need a new pair of shoes, okay? Wife need a new dress and a new hat, all right? It would be far better for you to have said that rather than putting all of that on, saying it's God's requirement, okay, or using the God narrative over people's lives. So you know that when you say God said, people panic. Okay, they start shutting down. They say, "Oh my God, you done heard from God, and I'm in the wrong, and in my behavior." Because scripturally speaking, y'all all off base. Because see, what happens when they talked about the tithes and y'all, it was a place in scripture where the disciples said to the people, "Okay, bring what you have, so that every man would have something." I'm rephrasing, but that was the purpose of it. Okay, so the community. So the community people. So what they didn't have gold. They didn't have Lexuses. They ain't driving with hats on and rhinestones and everything else up to it. But they wanted to make sure that everybody in the community ate. Okay. So what it was is they brought their fruits, their labor, their potatoes, their rice, whatever the case that they grew, and they laid it at the altar, laid it at the feet of the disciples, and they dispersed it. Okay, that was what the tithe and the aspect of the giving came from. All right, but through centuries down, they started distorting it. Then it became money. Then it became taking care of the preacher. Then it became doing this, and it became doing this, and everything else had a monetary effort behind it. Now I get it. The buildings need to be taken care of. Okay, the lights need to be paid, the rent need to be paid, and all those other type of things. Be honest when people say the lights need to be paid, the rent on the building, you know, we're buying the church or whatever the case. Be honest about it, but don't put all this stuff on God and having $300 and $400 lines, and you got mother in the back with 4 kids and she's trying to feed them, and you make her feel bad because she can't give $2. Okay, but what about the widow's mite? Oh, we won't talk about that one. Okay, because the widow's mite, you know the story of the widow's mite, right? You know about that one, Charles, about the story of the the widow's mite. Okay, she brought all she had, which was 2 cents. Okay, but she gave out of the abundance of her spirit and wanting to contribute, and she was blessed more than any of those people that had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, because God recognized her heart. Okay, and it is about the culture of the heart of the individual. Okay, in the giving aspect. But when you roll into this, because you got these prosperity preachers and everybody on EBN, CBN, IBLU, and NB every Christian radio, TV, and radio station always ask, we ask them money too, but we telling you what we need our money for. All right, we need it for support because we got to pay for stuff. All right, and all right, and there ain't no difference about that. But my thing, I'm gonna get off of it. I just think that it should be, from this point going forward. I hope y'all share this around the world. All right, what I'm saying is be honest with the people. Okay, if you got people going to your church, be honest with them. One of the things about my pastor, that we still associate with back in Atlanta, he never did anything like that. And the man has been taken care of well abundantly in and of himself. Okay, didn't get up in that. He did a turn, and I gotta shut up. The original church that we were part of back then, he went to the congregation. Oh, this is probably almost 20 years ago. And he told him, he said, God told me to stop this thing. He said, because it ain't right. And he got so much flack for it, but he never lost in prosperity.
Well, Roland Martin said church ain't free.
You know what?
Church ain't free. Roland Martin said.
Well, I'm going to quote Pastor Leonard, who's I think he's married to Shawnee O'Neal now. He says that we shouldn't be giving money for poor and the hungry because it doesn't multiply. We're not getting anything back. So why give money to the poor if we can't get anything back in it?
Wow. Well, you know what, guys, thank you for turning the truth behind the truth tonight.
and the orange orangutan, Trump said, hey, God saved his life for this purpose he's doing right now, which is basically starving us, firing people, taking away our Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. But God saved his life for that purpose.
Exactly.
So, everything's not about our tithes.
But isn't it Paula White is his spiritual advisor of the White House? Paula White. Did she call on the African angels? You got to remember that she called on the African angels.
She did
to come to help him and to help America. But one thing I cannot understand is that you said to those pastors to stop lying when it boils down to the money. I'm thinking about building funds, but there is no building being built,
being funded.
That's the problem. Don't say we're raising money for a building fund and there ain't no building. Right. And I've seen some churches with just the foundation
out of buildings.
But it's just the fact that that is the situation though. People need to be honest about what is happening, what is going on. But let's just say this. Oh, I know. I'm going to say this too. The fact is that as things are getting bad out here, the church need to be out here making it known to the community, but also to the ones who come and support them. That listen, we see what's going on within the economy right now. We don't need to be overdoing and over asking. But if there's a situation where you cannot afford groceries, let us know. That is where the change happens, because the church has become so disconnected to what's going on realistically and the economy, and especially out here in this situation called politics. Because the church don't want to get involved, but then on top of that, the church is so involved in telling people how to live their life, and that becomes a little bit more political as well, which is a social boundary that needs to never be crossed. Right. Because that's where I feel like it gets dangerous for those. And I tell people, there's nothing wrong in serving whatever God that you believe is right for you. But when you start enforcing, which is what Trump has allowed the evangelicals to now do, because they put a lot of money into his reelection campaign. Let's just be honest. They're going to start enforcing Christian values now in the schools. This is the agenda now that they keep saying that the LGBT has been doing. You're going to be enforcing your values on people who don't believe that those values are for them. And that's where it gets very sticky. Right.
Absolutely.
That's where it gets very sticky. But still though, I think the church should, especially in that moment, that was a social boundary that I feel like a lot of people told Marvin, like, you shouldn't have said that, you shouldn't have did that. But for those who understood. But for those who didn't, hey, It was
Well,
a line that was crossed.
You know, like I said, what we're going to go to break anyway. So
no, that's okay. It's okay.
You know, I mean, and rightfully said what it said. You know that again, tithes and offerings given to the spiritual have been a controversial moment for the longest period of time. Okay, but I will say this before we go to the break: do what you feel led to do for you. All right, at the end of the day, because this is the truth behind the truth in it. If your rent is due, pay your rent.
Pay your rent. And if you have an opinion, put it in the comment.
Put it in the comment. If your condo due, pay your condo. Because guess what? Guess what? If the tow truck roll up to your house and connect, okay, and you said you paid your tithes, okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we'll be right back to continue on with more navigation. All right, right after this.
Call 844-55-STARZ. It's Junk Stars, baby.
Hey, my name is Thurston, and here I have my CEO, son Langston. We specialize in junk removal, dumpster rental, and demolition. So if you need junk removed,
call Junk Stars.
You need dumpster rentals,
call Junk Stars.
All right. Thank you for tuning in, guys.
On Medicaid coverage for her frequent hospitalizations. Susan relies on Medicaid for her health care. Medicaid provides her wheelchair transportation. Edna's 98. Edna received Medicaid coverage and is now able to have full-time care at a rehabilitation center for senior citizens. Carol, my son Jason, is 41 and autistic. Wendy and Cassie. Wendy is the mother. Rosemary, Danielle, Sally, and Mike. These Americans, I hear you. I hear you.
Wow. You know, welcome to the show today again, guys. Thank you for tuning in to The Truth Behind the Truth. We're going to talk about Senator Cory Booker in just a second. Booker, I'm sorry. Booker. Sorry, Booker. You know,
Baker, don't he?
Yeah, like a Baker. Yeah, I wanted to say hey to Joe. Joe Madison, thank you for tuning in tonight. Definitely Miss Stephanie Gale. We love you guys. Thank you for spreading the word, being here each and every week. Tuesday and Saturday nights.
On YouTube, we do not see.
Yeah.
There might be some of them watching on YouTube.
Yeah, we have quite a bit of on YouTube followers as well. So all of you that are taking the time to tune in tonight, you know, on all of our platforms, we will. We're still working to try to get this connected up with Instagram. It's just you got to cross this, cross that, and jump over this, and, you know, and all that to try to get there. So you got to figure out a way to jump there. But we want to welcome back our ex-viewers, and we are working on our TikTok side of getting back out there as well. So all of these platforms that are available for you
before it shuts down. Before it shuts down. But still, though, we're gonna keep that one moving.
Exactly.
But anyway, going back to Cory Booker, you know, they considered this speech. This is the record 25-hour speech. Him being on for anybody to be on the floor this long in the
Senate. It's a filibuster.
It's a filibuster, yeah. And you know, one thing I can say is that, you know, regardless of them not having as many seats in the Senate or in the Congress, this is very important. This is what I would say that at least the Democrats can do to block this unnecessary situation that the Republicans are allowing Trump to do.
Right.
Because I don't think the Republicans are doing too much of anything. They're allowing this man to get away with so much murder that at the end of the day, they don't have now the spine nor the balls to just say enough is enough. Thank God for our judges, because that's who is really holding up our democracy right now.
That's about to change. They're putting a bill now to stop the judges from having national power.
Right.
They want them to not be able to put those in where it covers the nation, but only where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the bill now. It's going through now.
And what were we saying before the election?
Uh-huh.
See, this is all a setup for totalitarian governments.
Yep.
This is very dangerous.
Yes.
This is very dangerous on a fragile experiment that seems to always go up in smoke. Democratic systems do not always last because it always takes one person to mess it up for a whole country, because you have people who want one person to lead and to control. And that is, in any democratic situation, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But hey, this is what some people voted for.
Well,
They voted for this.
you know, I think we mentioned this last week on the show. One thing about all of this, the light at the end of the tunnel that we're hopefully seeing, some days it gets dimmer, some days it gets a little brighter, and some days it gets real dim, some gets a little bit brighter. I am glad to see that there's an active participation in the community going to these town halls, okay, and actually, verbalizing what is going on. My only I don't use the term fear, but my only deeper thought behind that is this going to really pay off? Because I get it, utilizing your voice, utilizing all of those other type of avenues to bring things to light. But where is it going to pay off on the national front? Where is it going to? So where does we the people work now? You don't say not work where we work, but where does we the people work right now? Do we have the ability? Do we have the power to stop this BS that's going on? Do we?
We should.
Okay.
We should. It would take a whole unnecessary, not unnecessary. I should change up the word. It should take a necessary, really. Let's just say this: the American people got to start getting angry. And to get angry, we need to start really paying attention. This word woke is something that we don't like. Some people could care less for, but I would rather for a whole country to stay woke in a situation where it is needed. And this is so needed.
Right.
Even when it boils down to him dismantling the Department of Education. Yeah, some people say, well, why do we need the Department of Education? What's the point of us having something that we don't see the need of having? And regulation to some is another way of Marxism and communism, and somebody controlling me and my children and telling me that my children.
Can I get in on that? Because this is a misconception, and the ignorance is the problem within the country. The civics is not taught, so no one knows how these operate. The Department of Education is not a dictatorship, or it's an oversight group that actually makes sure that across the country people are being treated fairly in the processes that we put in our educational system. They also help put together the money for our disabilities and our special learning, to make sure that the transportation is set up right. They don't dictate what they learn. That's a state thing. The states have control of that. Right. So it's not that the major government is telling you what to teach, what you can't teach. Trump is doing that. Right. And the Congress, who's supposed to be in charge of that, are letting him run willy-nilly without saying a word.
Yeah, you're right.
And you know what? So that is so true, because of the fact that in states like Texas and states like Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, critical thinking classes are not being taught. And there's a reason for that. There is a reason why critical thinking, people will say, well, I'm a critical thinker, but to be a critical thinker, you need to still do research. You just don't need to go off when somebody's telling you something. You just don't need to go off and say, well, I don't believe it. And you need to have your stuff there to debate that.
Yeah,
it's a discussion.
Go against it just because so and so told me to go against it. That's not critical thinking. That's you just taking on somebody else's rhetoric and using it and that is very dangerous. That's what most people who believe in Trump is. Trump told us that this was going to happen, A, B, and C, and you up here telling me something different. But have you did your research? No. Like we're doing this show called Truth Behind the Truth. We're telling people that this is what we know. Right. But I didn't have to hear this from anybody else. I have went and did my own research, and I have thought about the situation before I went along with it, or before I have gone along with it. The same thing when it boils down to, we talked about church. We talked about tithing.
Mhm.
And some people do believe that if the pastor says that God told him that we should use this money for A, B, C, and D, then they will go along with it because he said, God said.
Right.
But instead of doing their own research,
Right.
just asking questions,
Right.
to be honest with you, because you know what has happened
Right.
before. People drunk of the Kool-Aid because
Right.
they didn't ask no
That's
questions.
true.
That's
true.
you just got to start doing your own research to call yourself a critical thinking. But in states where there are schools where that is not being taught, those states are either in situations where they are red states,
Mhm.
and those states are very poor,
Mhm.
and the people don't know. And I hate to say this because I'm from one.
Right.
There are people who don't know civics in those states
Right. Mhm.
because there's a good old boy system that lets them know that you're not allowed to know these things.
Right.
Rich people are allowed to know these things. Rich people should control the narrative. You just need to go to work
Mhm.
and stop complaining because you have a job.
Right.
That's basically what that is.
Right.
Go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Absolutely. No. You're absolutely. I mean, you're on point about that. But I wanted to touch on the way you said about the critical thinking skills. For me, and I think Charles and I kind of contest, to this, because we are men of a certain age, and the line share of what I think that we both experienced, with having parents in the house and then influential, information being brought to us by our parents, whether they were on point or not.
Yeah.
It did give a credence to say, hey, go look this up for yourself. Get the knowledge for yourself. And it was the critical thinking opportunities were in school, and decided of that. I was having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday. He just turned 70. And so I said, well, gosh, we're still of the same generation, not the same age, but the same generation. But we made clarity to each other about what our experiences were in that time frame. So he's part of the 50s. Okay, I mean, he's born in the 50s, basically, but yet his life was made up of the 60s. Charles and I were born in the 60s, but our life was made up of the 70s. You know what I'm saying? But we were young kids going through the 60s, so we saw a lot that went on.
Yeah.
But then again, we transformed into a lot. I mean, Charles can contest with me. I mean, the fact that in the 60s, we had the hippie movement that was coming in, okay? So we saw love one another, okay? We saw the races finding a way to connect, We saw music as a bridge of communication. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that bridge of communication lasted through all the way out through the 70s. Hell, you're going to discos. Well, nobody cared what color you look like. Okay? They just found somebody to dance with and they had a good time. Studio 54 was the best capital in the world. But guess what? Every celebrity, everybody could get in there. Everybody could pay the $25 back in 77 or whatever. The Studio 54 was big, they went
75 up. Yeah.
Exactly. So this separation of ideas, I said this on the show previously, has occurred, my opinion, has come through music. Okay? Because where we were, let's just use the 60s and the 70s, okay? Where we were in the 60s was an introduction of the deeper side of African American people being exposed to the pop community because Berry Gordy came, and all of with Motown and all that started introducing, and he found a way to bridge a different gap of introducing Black talent to the white community, and the white community at that particular point in time called it race music, okay? Because somebody found a rhythm in their butt and they started shaking. Okay, so I'm saying this as a point that I always have to say that, and I'm using Charles and I as an example. I think we dropped the ball.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We started allowing certain things to infiltrate into the way of our lives and into our communities and things of that nature, and not building strong based on what we learned. And that could get into MTV sagas and the BETs and all that type of stuff. But that's all a part of that whole genre what went on. But back to your original point, it's just my thing is always where do we go from here? We know how we basically got here. What are we going to do to change the narrative in every community, not just typically the African American community, Black community, whatever you want to call us, but every community, because as we've always said that if we don't find a way to coexist beyond what has been taught to us, we ain't gonna make it. Well, they ain't gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. But
Well,
we're
Go
Yeah,
ahead, go ahead,
but you
go
know what I'm
ahead,
saying.
go ahead,
But
go
I'm
ahead,
saying,
go ahead.
but it does require an elevation of communities. Okay,
Yeah.
and we can never get there by consistently pointing fingers at one another
Yeah.
because of their differences. Okay,
Finger point never helps.
No, it
And
doesn't.
the thing about our generation dropping the ball, I think we slacked up, but we have to have some grace from us because it's not so much of us not doing it. It's the fact that we didn't hold our kids accountable or the feet to the fire to take it in.
Well, like
When I was young, my
Mhm.
parents made sure I learned Black history, that I read Black Benjamin Banneker and all that stuff, George Washington Carver. They made sure I learned that. So when I grew up, I had my kids learning it. And they kept saying every King holiday, well, it wasn't even holiday then. Why do we have to listen to the same speech every King birthday? Why? Because you need to have that embedded in your memory, in your mind, to understand that the plight and the effort put toward us having civil rights, because just like Martin Luther King said, I feel that segregation has led my people into a burning building that we can't find our way out of.
Integration.
And it has that, how do I put it? My mama whipped my butt. I'm not gonna whip my kids' butt. I'm gonna talk to them. And while I was given that slack, they've learned to do what they want to do, because and parents these days, even my kids tell me, well, they got to express themselves. I want them to find their own way. No, that's why you're a parent. You're supposed to put the guidelines, let them know what they should be involved in, steer them. You don't have to make them do anything, but steer them in the right directions to do the things that are necessary for them to be productive citizens in this country. And that's a problem we have now. Kids are doing whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want. And then it's still bad because it used to be one parent could work and take care of the whole family.
Right.
You have to have two working parents.
Right.
You can't do that without both of them working.
Right.
You know, so.
That's true. But going back to that pointing finger, I you know what, to be honest with you, when it boils down to it, I don't believe in pointing fingers at people, but I do believe in holding people to an account what has happened, and to try to correct and to make a better way.
It's better to say offer correction.
Correction
rather than that's
okay.
where we're at. But go ahead.
But that is another way of social boundaries. This is what we're discussing. Charles, you said something about the fact that you had parents in the home teaching the children how to be respectable and in a society that calls for it. But now that you see on social media, that has gone out the window. You know, I you know what's so crazy, because I don't like to be on certain platforms and watch certain things, but this has always just stayed with me, is the fact that you can go shopping in a mall nowadays. And now they're having to put signs up saying that if you are 18 and below, you have to have a parent. Well, I bet in y'all's day that has never had to happen, because at least
in y'all's day,
in you all's day, that never had to happen, because you knew what was going to happen. Because in the beginning there was a community. If the community saw you acting out of line, you knew that somebody back at home or somebody a relative was going to know and was going to send word. And
we didn't have social media. We had the telephone. Mabel, I saw that boy down there acting a fool at the barbershop, and I think you need to talk to him. Girl, when he get him, I'll bust his head.
Right.
And that has now gone out the window because there is nobody at the home.
Right.
It's
There's
snitching.
nobody at home.
Well, you know, and I have to. I'm much as I like her, I said I'm just going to put one paperclip over blaming Oprah for that one. Okay, because you know I understand this kind of a shift. You know, going along with what you're saying, but I understand why she did what she did. But it became a national forefront, which was child abuse. Okay, so what had became as discipline, you know, choices of parental situations and discipline, became the big thing of child abuse. You know, and so you know, Charles may have gotten his butt whooped out in front of his friends. It wasn't child's butt. I mean, it wasn't child support. I mean, child support. Child abuse. You know. child support, no, but it wasn't child. I mean, look, I could tell you stories about my dad with my butt all the way home in front of my friends. Okay, it wasn't child abuse, you know. So it got to a point that everybody started getting into the problem of raising everybody else's child within the ranks of their home. Now, I agree, there is a lot of abuse, you know,
Oh, yeah.
extreme a lot of abuse out there. But these are people that shouldn't have had children in the first place.
And then the other part is people didn't want to get involved. Now they go, that ain't my problem. That's
Yeah.
not my child.
Right.
That, hey, then you say, well, I haven't seen little Jimmy in like months. And they go, well, hey, I haven't either, but that's not my kid. They'll figure it out. Then you find out the child's been locked in a room, hasn't eaten, hasn't been to school, lost weight. He's like 85 pounds.
Right, because of this bad parenting, you know, and that's kind of another height, and you know where this whole situation is. It's hard, not bad, horrible parenting, you know, and the freeness of laying and sticking and squirting. Okay, it's just gotten to be, I go right there. All right, laying, spreading, sticking, and squirting. That's all. That's what we're talking about right here. All right, at the end of the day, all right, has become a problem, and it is an epidemic. Okay, an epidemic to the point that people are having or becoming parents and not prepared to be a parent. Now, somebody would say, "Well, you're never prepared to be a parent." I understand that jargon, but what I'm talking about is people that are not grown up enough to understand the responsibility of being a parent.
Well, I'm a give it a side eye, because back in our day, that's why Daddy had a family on this block, 3 blocks down, and another one across the state.
Right.
He was sticking and squirting and wasn't taking care of home.
Right.
We can't always think that it's like Trump, make America great again. When was it great?
Yeah.
These things are happening all the time in different instances, but nobody's immune or excused from how society is rolled.
Right.
It's been a very bad thing throughout history. Everybody's doing wrong. It's just that now it's more prevalent because we have social media, we have 24-hour news. So everything just comes out at you.
Right.
We see it all the time. But everybody's doing some wrong.
Self-control.
Exactly.
You gotta have some discipline and some self-control, and that's all across the board.
Right.
Even when it boils down to sex, to I would call being having people social skills. You got to have some self-discipline.
Right.
And going back to what I was saying about you all not having to have parents have to go with you to the mall to go shop because there was no upheaval of teenagers ripping and running and stealing and all that stuff, because nowadays social media has made it more of a popular thing to now go through malls and rip and run because but the facts are the facts. I think because there is no self-discipline being taught in the homes, these things are happening right now.
Right.
Social boundaries.
Right.
Social boundaries. And I hate to say this though, but that's where politics gets involved.
Right.
The fact that you have police unions now wanting to beef up these days. You know, they have cleared off the databases now because they feel like now this country should be a police state.
Right.
And some believe in police states.
Right.
Most people believe that, it's just the fact that in order to control certain demographics, we will have more peace in this country. And when I'm saying that, more brown and black bodies are having to be policed because that is the rhetoric right now.
You fit the description.
Yeah, we always do. We always been fitting the description since slavery. Right. And that in itself is if you don't look up what I call the cold languages of our politicians, especially a lot of our conservative politicians, because they believe in this rhetoric, including our black ones.
That's so true.
And that's
I just, man, I always go back to the front when we touch on these subject matters, and and one of the things is that about the truth behind the truth is that we always want to seek solutions, to change the narrative of how, or at least start a movement into helping people see things better than what they automatically or what they are at the present. So we this dialogue is very important, guys. It really is, and I would encourage you to submit. If you got ideas, hey, just throw them out here with us. We'll talk about them. Put them in the comments, please. And I'm gonna go back to the comments real quick. Alan Jewett, a good friend of mine, he chimed in tonight. He mentioned about the courtrooms becoming the bank now, which he's right.
Charles, you believe in that?
Yes. Yes, he's right. Okay.
Privatized prisons.
Yes. You know, it has become the bank for, is you can say, your state and local government, basically, because, you know, I mean, I know Charles Yigan, because well, thank God we're having to see that here in LA. I haven't, I know he hasn't, but I know right there in Atlanta, you know, any given day, you go down to Fulton County Court and it's packed. Okay. And it's packed with people that have no money to pay an astronomical fine. Okay. And when they get in front of that judge, the judge says, well, it's going to be X amount of dollars. You did this, they didn't read out their sentencings or whatever the case may be, and say, guess what? In order to stop going to jail, you got to pay $700.
Well, I'll give Atlanta props. They have gone with the how you said reduced bail. They don't deal with the bail as much anymore, because there's people who go to jail who are innocent, but they have no money to pay a bail. So now they're stuck in it for the next year. Right. Which they're making money off of, making furniture, doing all this other stuff. Right. The privatized prisons are making all the money.
Right. So the one, and I agree. The one point I was going to make about that, and I'm just using Atlanta as an example, because it happens in courtrooms all over the country. So it just ain't limited to that, you know, that area of that. I mean, especially when you have in a high crime environmental area, you know, not saying Atlanta is a high crime, but
Baltimore, Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so but in these courtrooms, okay, these judges are there, and you know the number one entrapment that they do with people is probation. Okay, so what they do, if you don't have that $800 in your checking account or whatever the case be on your credit card, if you're fortunate to have one, you know, guess what? They put you in front of a probation officer, okay, and they set up a probation plan. Okay.
And if you carry that monitor on your ankle, you have to pay monthly for that. That ain't free. You have to pay for it.
Yeah, if it's deep, you're going to have to go there. But here's the thing: these probation fees that a person has to pay on top of that, so they're making money off of that and off the fees. Wow. Okay, so you know, it's every time you go see a probation officer, whatever the case may be, $35 to go visit plus what you owe. Okay, so to your point, Alan, hey, I totally agree. You know, but we the people. Again, we the people. What are the people doing to change that narrative? Why are we continuously allowing these people to dominate our? This is like city. You know, we're talking about state and local right now. You know, we ain't talking about national. That's state and local. That's a whole nother conversation about nationally. You know what I'm saying? But state and local, what are we doing to do that? We want to sit back and complain. Oh, they're locking black people up all the time. Well, number one, stop your ass from getting locked up. How about that one? Okay. How about let's start with that? All right.
Sometimes you can't help it.
Well, the things you have control over, okay. but stop getting locked up. You know what I mean? Stop allowing these things to befall you when, like you said earlier, when you have the right of the accountability to make the right decision. Yeah. You know, where is your openness? You know what goes on. Okay, you know what is happening in these places, but yet it's in fashion to get locked up. It's in fashion nowadays for the young crowd to go to jail. Oh, man, look, I done been up in there, man. Hey, they ain't gonna do that to me because I'm like this. I'm tough, man. I'm all this. I'm 4 bags of chips and a Mountain Dew.
Until you get in there.
Until you get in there. All right. And then you can't get out of there. All right. And it is set up to keep people entrapped, okay, and continuously entrapped. All right. So, but these are the messages that we need to start spreading to the communities. Pay the fuck attention to what's going on. Okay, in your community. Y'all worrying about what's going on the national level. National ain't gonna put you in jail. All right. But guess what? State and local will.
Federal, you mean?
No, yeah. Well, national, yeah. Federal won't unless you get to that level. I hope you ain't get that level of crime because something wrong with you. Okay, something seriously wrong with you if you're going that high up. All right, but at the end of the day, and I'm just tired of seeing that narrative, you know, about that and that message. It is always attacking the men of color, you know, and they know it. We know it, but why are we not changing it and changing our own mindsets? You see what I'm saying? Why are we so why is that the norm? Why is that exciting? I know why it is. I know how I got glorified. You know, we know that music. All right, it becomes the
movies. Music didn't start that.
Yeah,
movies did.
Yeah,
James Cagney and all that stuff. Yeah, that started that.
But
you know,
I think people are misguided, and they're so misguided by the media.
Right.
You know, just because somebody told you to go wear this or go jump off a bridge, that's where you need to start asking why. Right. Why do I need to do these things to be accepted? That's that. To be honest with you, I'm so thankful. I've had in my own situation the case of not having to look up to nonsense to say, well, if they're doing it, why can't I do it? I don't see the need of following people. Why follow people?
Right.
But then going back to what Charles had said, with the situation where that the people with who are in jail, they're having to, in order for them not to have to pay back that bail, they're having to work now to get by. That's so much like indentured slavery, and and that is going to come. And I want to say this too. I think that's going to replace those people who are not going to be out there picking those situations. What I'm trying to get at, those illegals. I think that will be in vogue nowadays. That's going to, who's going to be picking our fruit? Who's going to be picking our vegetables? Those people who cannot make bail, who cannot pay off certain criteria of illegal situations like tickets, that's going to be the situation right now. And they know that most Americans who are not able to do certain things financially, that's how they're going to hold us down. They're going to hold us down in that way, because now you have people who believe in that. You can't just put people in chattel slavery anymore. But there is a thing called indentured servitude that is still for some people that's not as worse. And yes, those who are incarcerated will be those doing that. And and like you say, most Americans in their need to pay attention to their state and local situations, because the federal, it takes a while for things to happen with the federal narrative of things. But if you are in a community where there is a vote, for example, about certain things like
referendums.
Yes.
Referendum.
Yeah. If there's a situation where they want to bring back Jim Crow, I hope people will be woke to the fact that they said, I need to get up and say, no, we're not going back. We're going forward. And that is a state and local situation right now. You got states who are thinking about going back to Jim Crow laws because now they have a man up there in Washington who told them, you have all types of power to do those things because I will not interfere. So I hope Americans nowadays will understand the importance of a state and local vote other than a federal vote, because that's what's going to stop this situation right now. And that's going to bring at least some norm back into this whatever country we call now a country of democracy, because right now that's going to be what Cory Booker said right now. That's in a landslide. That's why he's standing up there making that 25-hour speech. He wants Americans to know that this is so important right now. There is no games to be played right now. And
until we have a separation of state again, a separation of powers rather, we won't have anything. Right now, we follow the leader. Trump says it, everybody follows down. It trickles down from the federal to the states. And it's just a matter of fact, D.L. Hughley has a young man that said something. Let me play that for you right now.
Go ahead.
Smithsonian executive order is one step in a larger story, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot here, but first they banned books that made them feel uncomfortable, stories that are not centered on white heterosexual males. Then they started changing the curriculum in schools to take away things like slavery and segregation because it might make those students who share the same complexion as the perpetrators feel bad, which is very snowflake of them, and an admission that it happened and it was racist. Then they reelected a convicted felon who was endorsed by white supremacist groups. Then they removed DEI from the federal government and even blamed it for a plane crash, all while threatening retribution to any organization that has DEI by pulling funding and whatnot. Then they started deporting anyone who isn't white and they think might be here illegally. Remember, they haven't shown us any Russians or Europeans that are here illegally being deported. Then they tried to sell off government buildings and sneak in a couple of museums that honor the civil rights movement. Then they went after higher education and law firms who aren't in agreement with them. Then they went after veterans that aren't white men who served our country and are buried in Arlington National Cemetery by removing them from their website. They also went after an airplane because it had the word gay in its name, the Enola Gay, but that apparently was an AI thing. Then they allowed government contractors to reinstate segregation if they wished. Then they went after the Department of Education because funding also helps those with disabilities and people of color. Again, anyone who is not white, able-bodied, heterosexual male. Now they're going after the Smithsonian because some of the museums, like the National Museum of African American History and Culture, tells a narrative that isn't a positive depiction of those same white heterosexual males. And yes, my mother is in the museum and she is white, but she's a woman, not a guy. So now this is all part of the plan to roll back to when they believe America was great. However, they never said when that was, but I think by now we have a pretty good idea of where this is heading.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Charles.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. And those of you that are listening, there it is. There it is. I mean, just as plain as day. And
laundry list.
A laundry list, exactly. I hope that, you know, again, you guys that are listening on this, take this information, share these shows. Okay, please share these shows. It is so vital to everything that we're talking about. You know, I know we got to go for a quick break, and we're gonna come back. I want you just to remind people. I know we said over and over again, but
remind them of Project 2025 because that's what he just said.
Right, exactly. 2025, exactly. But the one that the man said he wouldn't even Apollo, lying to your face. Okay,
that's all about
lying to your face, the Christian liar. Okay, but anyway, so. I want you just to talk about real quick about how the internment camps evolved during Hitler's Germany, okay, and how it went from 1 week to none being there to 2 weeks later, rounding up people, putting them in these internment camps.
It's the same with Donald Trump. Think about it.
I know.
Hitler was elected.
I'm sorry, Charles.
He didn't just walk in there; he was elected for a third term, a second term, and then he took a third.
Right.
Trump's doing the playbook.
Absolutely. And then you got what was that woman that was next to Hitler? What was her name? Get out his doing. What was that woman's name?
What did she do?
She was his right hand man, right hand woman, man, whatever the case may be.
They don't. You know, to be honest with you, I only know of Leni Riefenstahl.
Okay. but she was one that was right next to him, doing all of his giving. Anyway, but the reason I'm bringing that up is because I told you that I simply hate this commercial. That's a national commercial board that Kristen on when she gets on. Did you see it yet, Charles? She gets on and threatening everybody.
No, I sure did. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell?
Oh, I think I know who
you know what I'm talking
about. Olga Homeland. Is she part of the Homeland?
No, not talking about her, but she's just like the woman that was in Germany for Hitler's time. What was her name? Olga somebody, Igor or whatever her name is. It'll come to us. But anyway, but I'm saying with this Kristi Noem woman, she's exactly doing the same thing. She's putting these threats over people's lives. How dare you have I can't say the balls, I don't know what to call it. But anyway, to have a national commercial, you know what I'm saying, that is played almost every evening in the morning, putting a threat over people's lives. How in the hell can y'all allow this to happen? How can you sit back and say that? Man, okay, let's go break.
Free speech.
Well,
the First Amendment, they have the First Amendment. And then on top of that, they have great PR. I've been saying it since the Democrats were all in there. The Democrats have to have great PR. And the Republicans have learned, I've probably learned great from Joseph Goebbels. If you can keep implementing information, telling the people this is what's going on, this is what we're doing over and over and over again, and it could be a lie too, as well as the truth.
Right.
They will believe it.
Right.
They will believe it. And that is what Trump and them have understood about the American people. The American people are no different from those all around the world who are not and do not have the luxury of understanding, of doing your own research. They understand that propaganda is so necessary at a time where people who do not know will believe.
This is the power of a free press. This is why nobody sees all the Tesla protests and the marching. They're everywhere, all over the world. But we're not showing it on our news because Trump is threatening them.
Right.
Yeah,
that's her.
And this is what Jay's talking about.
That bitch.
For deporting criminal illegal immigrants and for putting putting America first. President Trump has a clear message for those that are in our country illegally. Leave now. If you don't, we will and we will deport
Dondi,
you.
I think it is. I forget her name.
For too long, weak politicians left our borders wide open.
Yeah.
They flooded our
That's PR. That's PR spin.
That's bullshit.
It's
right?
bullshit,
Mhm.
but that's the message that needs to come across to those who don't understand that this is what Trump is doing. This is what's happening. And even though it's illegal in the judicial sense of it, in the law, some of the stuff that he's doing immigration-wise is so illegal to the books. But I don't see
Mhm.
nobody putting him in jail for anything, so he can get away.
That's
with it.
Congress's job. They're supposed to stop him from doing that, but they're not, because they're all in his pocket.
And it's mostly ran by the Republicans.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's no accountability. There's
No
no
accountability there.
accountability for him. Go ahead and break, Charles, real quick. We're coming back in.
All right.
You need a pickup, call Junk Stars. Yeah. If you need a dumpster or demolition, call Junk Stars. Yeah. Call 844-55-STARZ. Junk Stars. It's Junk Stars, baby.
Hey, my name is Thurston, and here I have my CEO, son Langston. We specialize in junk removal, dumpster rental, and demolition. So if you need junk removed,
Call Junk Stars.
you need dumpster rentals,
Call Junk Stars.
There's a magnetic force that is pulling me down. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to balance me out. My feet can't touch the ground. Yeah, I'm flying. Yeah, I'm
All right, and we are back, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into The Truth Behind the Truth tonight. I mean, we unpacking as we do each and every week for you, to provide knowledge for you so that you can be educated and educate the people around you. Man, you know, God, anyway, all right, go ahead. Your next point. I'm sorry, I'm getting too deep here.
But going back to what we were saying, it's that right there. When it boils down to Republicans, they're learning. They're not learning social boundaries. The subject matter of this show, the Chinese, they're ready for us. They're ready. They've been ready.
Right.
But we're talking about social boundaries, and they're snatching that stuff up. There's there was a thing called being politically correct.
Mhm.
That has now become really taboo to those who support Trump.
Right.
Because you can now, in his mind, you can be whoever you want to be.
Mhm.
You can be racist without no regards. You can be a misogynist with no regard. You can be a homophobic with no.
But you can't be gay.
You can't. Well, that's an agenda that's being pushed.
But you can't be gay.
Along with being politically correct. Because when you're politically correct, you have to think before you speak.
Mhm.
That's the thing I don't quite understand, why people find that to be the most misunderstood thing. Why can you not think before you speak? Why must you just blurt out anything? And that right there that's problematic. You wouldn't want to teach your child to just say whatever he or she thinks is to them is right to say in the moment, when it's not. There's a time and place for everything, and that is why we're seeing all types of craziness that is happening. Because that is there's an invisible line that must never be crossed. Out of respect for an individual, a community, and religion, or whatever that you do, you want somebody to respect you. And
Decorum.
Decorum. And that right there, I'm seeing that because of this narrative that I think being politically correct is of a Marxist agenda, a communist agenda. Being woke is just, it goes against the grain of being American. That's a problem with me. But hey, to each his own. I mean, I wish somebody would want to just blurt out something racist towards me and put me in a situation, because at the end of the day, that gives me free reign to say what the hell ever I want to say now, because now I have to defend myself. But the fact is that, hey, This is what this is what these people represent. This is what Trump's people represent. They don't want any type of accountability or responsibility. Or any
That's
type
why Trump nor Elon Musk will go in front of a hearing, because you will be held liable for lying. So that's why they won't go in those places, because everything is recorded and it has to be the truth, a sworn statement, and they will not go in there because that's taboo.
Right. Well, I mean, as long as you got a whole host of people that believe everything that come out of your mouth, you know.
Why not?
Why
not believe them?
Why not? You know, why not?
Why not believe?
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, what causes there not to not believe him? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I mean, he's doing exactly what he said. I mean, he's changing everything. Prices are going in the direction he said they were up. Okay.
Upside down.
He couldn't control the price.
Upside down.
They're going everywhere else.
He said he couldn't control that, which just should have been the alarm sign for those who kept saying to us, "Well, if he gets in, he's going to bring the cost of eggs and all this stuff down." Well, he said with the Times Magazine article during the election,
once it goes up,
I have no control over that.
Yeah, once it goes up, there's nothing I can do.
Right. So he did change the prices.
Alert.
Danger, Will Robinson.
He changed the price of groceries and eggs, and he did. Okay, he kept his word. Okay.
Potato chips are going up, y'all. See, I work in the grocery industry. When you have people complaining about potato chips to this day, they were complaining about the inflation then, but they're now complaining about it now. And I'm looking at them like, well, so this is what you wanted, right?
It is.
You didn't understand that not only we were going through an inflation, but the world was going through an inflation.
And we were better off than everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand, where did we get off? Where did we get disconnected? Where was the disconnect? But I blame, sometimes I go back to the Democrats. Bad PR. They having an FAFO moment. You also know who's having an FAFO moment? There's this black, I don't know her name, but she comes over my algorithm. But she voted for Trump. Black woman voted for Trump. She lives in Wisconsin. Her son is on the verge of spending 20 years in prison. But she's asking black folk to help her.
She says she's a Trump advocate. She loves Donald. He's going to fix this Trump. Hey, but this is that thing where they say, when you be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it.
Absolutely. You know, as we kind of narrow it down
but it was the gay agenda that put her boy in jail. See, that's the problem right there. It's the gay agenda. It's somebody's agenda that's putting people that they love in jail when it's not Daddy Trump. And you know, when that man was speaking about the fact that if you're not a white man and heteronormative or heterosexual, whatever you want to
heterofacial. Okay.
Then you have no say in this matter. But it's so sad that you have people within our community, black men and some black women, who are spreading these propagandas and these tools for white men. And that is a problem. And that is a problem with me, because you should know damn better that you have nothing in this pocket, in this shop. You should not be selling.
I'm in the White House. I was good and red. I'm in the White House.
You have nothing. You have nothing to stand on.
Nope.
You have no leg to stand on in this matter. And I don't feel no waist tied for these people, because these people gonna get their feelings hurt first. It took what was her name from The Apprentice?
Omarosa.
Omarosa. Poor Omarosa was out there. She was making it known that Trump was the best man for the job, and then all of a sudden she did something she had no business doing. And you know what they did? They tossed her tail out the White House. The front doing a Christmas party. She was
locked her out.
She was being in
That's hilarious.
She was in the Situation Room being grilled by.
She was the situation in the room
by her boss's people, and they telling her, "You got to get the up out."
Yep.
She was the
And
situation in
that
the
right
room.
there was a red flag for these Republican black tools that don't understand you have no leg to stand on in this.
Oh, that was
Because
just
you
her.
are not a white man. Oh,
It was just
Can I ask
her.
one question?
Yes.
go ahead.
What happened to Tim's fiance?
Who?
Tim
Cheese and Tim.
Tim Scott.
Tim
Tim Scott. Remember he had the white girl he got engaged to be vice president? And now we don't hear nothing about that.
It's called DEI.
He was not needed. That right there, when he didn't get the position that he wanted. What was the point of?
DEIA.
What was the point of putting her out there in the front as his wife? I think did they just get married?
DEIA.
I don't even think they did because we haven't heard nothing about it.
I think
Oh,
they
they
did
did.
get married. I think they did.
Huh?
Unless Lindsey Graham must have stopped.
No, good. I ain't gonna say that. I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Lindsey Graham must have stopped it.
Lindsay.
Mm.
You know,
Lindsay.
Lord,
Lindsay got hurt.
You know,
Lindsay got hurt, y'all.
Mm.
Lindsay said, "You ain't gonna get my man. You can have my man. Here, you better get out of here. That's my man. That's my black man. This is my black man. You said today we gotta start getting controversial. Okay, Lindsay."
He a problem. Tim Scott has been a problem.
No, I would say problematic.
He is very well.
Yeah, problematic.
He's very
Okay.
problematic
Yes.
because he has no spine.
But I love you. I love you, Mr. Trump.
Byron Adams. You think Byron gonna be governor of Florida? Now,
Nope.
if that fool in North Carolina who said that, what was his name? Who said if I could, I would buy me some slaves too.
Ooh.
Now, if he couldn't be governor in North Carolina, what makes you think that this fool in Florida gonna be governor?
He put his wife up. DeSantis put his wife up.
Oh, put his wife up. I thought you said he beat
Yeah,
his wife.
she's running for governor.
Lord have mercy.
And she probably will win. You know
Yep.
who else put his wife up? George Wallace.
Yep.
George Wallace's wife ran for governor and won too. So probably he learned from that.
Wow.
Same playbook.
Wow.
Yeah, she will win.
Wow. Man, y'all.
Is she Cuban though? Is she Cuban? Aren't they
I think
Cuban?
she is. I think she is.
Oh well, I just hope she don't get deported now. There's a situation going on right now.
God, deportation.
You don't even have to be illegal anymore to be deported now. I don't think understand. You know, you just got to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you just.
And then we'll figure it out later.
Right.
That's why you should stay your tail home. Stay your tail home. Get your ass out that street. Stay your ass home.
I'm outside.
I'm outside. No, I'm at home. You don't have to just-
You know, there's always they're doing this push too to try to get Melania expelled as well.
Oh, that ain't no.
That ain't
No.
gonna happen, but
That
yeah.
ain't gonna never happen. Because you know why it's not gonna happen? She's European, and that's what they want.
She ain't European.
Yes, she is.
She's yeah, she is, but she's not the European they want.
Yeah.
She's
not the one they want.
What is she? Yugoslavian?
That's
Whatever.
European.
Yeah, Yugoslavian.
Yugoslavian.
European.
No, it ain't.
Okay, whatever.
It-
In
it-
your
it-
mind, you don't.
It ain't that phase they use. That's
Yeah, it's not the one they're looking for.
No,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes,
Well-
they don't want Puerto Ricans, Mexicans,
Yugoslavians.
Africans,
Venezuelans, Colombians.
none of those brown
Swalians.
and blacks.
The Swalians.
They
They want Africanos.
to come back.
Okay.
The quota system was the best thing that had happened for America from let's just say before 1965.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing because that kept people who they deemed as undesirables out.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, they want that system to come back. You can only have a few Africans, a few Asians, a few Jewish people, a few this, a few that. But hey, if you're European and male, come over here, legal or illegal,
See,
as long as you have some money.
Melania's gonna do like what's the name on Sanford and Son did? I got my daddy's papers.
Yeah.
She got more than just papers. She got
kids.
She was doing some things in her day, Lord.
Yeah, she do.
Lord.
but there's another conversation about that too. They were trying to get her stuff expunged from the internet.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
illicit activities. I'm sorry, that's on every halfway man a computer in the world. Red and white.
Not mine, but yeah.
You know what's so sad about that is that Jasmine Crockett is ghetto. She ghetto.
Right.
She ghetto. A self-made woman of color who people want to say she didn't earn the right of being there, but you got this woman running around with him. Now Trump's wife, she ain't ghetto, but she posed nude all over the place, legs wide open, everything wide open. But Jasmine,
that's art.
Because she called the man Governor Abbott Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels.
Make it make sense.
I love it.
Make it make sense. That's the problem right now. That's the problem. That's that's ghetto.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Give me a break.
And
she was right about this. DEI definitely earned it. Call me a DEI. I definitely earned my position. Yes,
that's right.
Definitely earned it. Jasmine Crockett, happy belated birthday.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, you know what? Enough about Melania Trump and starting her new OnlyFans strike. I mean, she's got Melania Trumps. I mean, Melania fans. That's what it is, right? Okay. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'm glad we left it out on a slight humor tonight. All right. But in the humor side of everything, there is a serious thought side. All right. And we want to invoke that serious thought side for you. Okay. At the end of the day, hey, go back, review the show, listen to what's been said once again. All right. It is very powerful. This information on this platform is very powerful for you guys. We really want you to be aware. All right. So that you just don't stand before the unjust judge wondering how you got there. Okay. You don't want to do that. All right. Make sure you have your information. Make sure you do your research, whether it's church research, non-church research, whether it's whatever it is. Okay. Make sure you do your research, government research, state and local research. Make sure you pay attention. Okay. Please pay attention, because what you think is happening ain't happening. But what you don't know is happening right up under your nose. All right. We love you much. We'll be right back here again live next Tuesday night, 6:15. Re-airing this Saturday, normal time at 9:15, 6:15 as well. If you're sharing the show, share that particular hour. Tell your friends to tune in. We are still up for donations. We ain't gonna tell you give. We call them donations.
And we're not shutting doors.
No, we're not shutting. Well,
it's free to support, subscribe,
exactly.
And but no, we're not shutting doors, and we're not. Well, we would love to ask for 20 here and there.
Okay, or 20. 20,000 here and there.
But listen, give from your heart.
All right. Give as God has given you to give.
Yes.
Let us be your testimony of prosperity.
A mess.
When you give it unto others, you will receive a substance. And I don't know what it is, but you will get substance. Okay?
I can't.
Okay.
Just don't give it to the poor people.
Yeah, there you go.
Because you ain't getting it back.
You ain't getting it back.
You ain't getting it back. It ain't. But see, okay, I'm gonna get off that because there's so many ways we can go into that.
All right. We're gonna let it go tonight.
We're gonna let that one go.
It won't multiply.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Back with you next week.
Church ain't free.
Wait a minute. You can open up another door.
Church ain't free.
Okay.
It calls to be the prayer boss. So.
Okay.
I ain't gonna leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Okay. All right. Leave it alone. All right. Guys, thank you again so much for tuning into The Truth Behind the Truth tonight. We love you. We love your support. And thank you so much. And we will be right back here. Where?
The
Truth
Behind the Truth.
The
Have a beautiful night. Bye, y'all.